dispatch services.
Alberta Health Services has already hired some of the staff members and has chosen the building to operate out of come next spring when the centralized location is set to open.
But Mayor Naheed Nenshi has now fired off a letter in protest to the health minister, warning that the changes could prove risky to patients.
Will the protest make a difference now? That's where Alberta Primetime begins tonight.
That's still the sound of help on the way, but how ambulances are assigned is changing. Right now, Calgary has its own centre that handles calls for fire, police and medical emergencies, but the province's new centre in Calgary is slated to open next April and would only handle ambulance calls, becoming part of a province-wide network of ambulance dispatch centres. A similar system is up and running in Edmonton, but Calgary Mayor Nenshi argues in his letter to the health minister the new system just doesn't make sense. Why is Calgary keeping emergency dispatch services close to home?
And joining us via Skype tonight is Karen Stoshnoff. She is with IBEW Local 254, the union that represents ambulance dispatchers in Calgary. Good evening, Karen. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Shauna. Hello.
Karen, AHS says their system would synchronize ambulances, making sure that the closest ambulance would also respond regardless of where a person is when a call comes in. Do you see it that way?
I see that that's what's happening right now, actually, Shauna. There's already the flexing that occurs with the ambulance services, whether it's interfacility transport or whether it's responding to an emergency. That flexing already occurs today within the public safety communications group.
Okay, so what would your concern be about what is already in the works coming down the road next spring?
Well, I see that as an unnecessary layer or another step in the process of responding to citizens' needs for an ambulance. So what would happen today is when you call 911, your call will be processed immediately. What would happen tomorrow if AHS does have their own call center is your call would be transferred. And that concerns me for a couple of reasons. One is it adds seconds onto that call. And then the other concern would be if there's any issue with a call getting dropped for whatever reason that may occur, that just puts the citizen in a bad position when they need an ambulance right away.
Karen, how important are those first few seconds when a call comes in? Can you give us some examples, a good idea?
Well, they're absolutely critical. Many times you might have some very, very critical information within the first 5 seconds of a call, for example. Now, although our call evaluators would need to manage that call and ask a set amount of questions, which they do, follow their protocols, you still need to listen to the caller, and that first 5 seconds gives you a lot of information that you might lose when you're in the process of transferring that call.
And as we mentioned, every second does indeed count in responding. Karen, a similar dispatch transition in Edmonton has been running for the past 3 years. AHS officials insist that it's working well in Edmonton. What are your thoughts on what they're saying, basically justifying their decision to go ahead with their plans for Calgary?
I'm glad it's working for Edmonton and area. What we have in Calgary already is a mirror image, in some ways, of what they have in Edmonton. I'm hoping that they can leave what works well in Calgary with Calgary. So if it's working great there, Shauna, that's fantastic. But keep in mind that they're not, unless they're the PSAP or the public safety answering point, there's still a delay in Edmonton that we do not have in Calgary.
Do you think Mayor Nenshi's letter to the health minister will make any difference? Do you think it's too late? I mean, plans are well underway.
I hope it does make a difference, and I hope they can renegotiate something that makes sense to all parties, because we need to keep what works. We need to keep a center of excellence that has proven themselves and cultivated that excellence through 8 years. So I'm hoping it does make a difference and that there can be some higher ground established or contracts renegotiated, whatever they need to do to keep things the way they are. That works very well.
Karen, is there anything specific that your group is doing to be heard? Doing the same type of thing? Other ideas?
So what we did is we actually also, from our perspective, wrote a letter to the mayor saying, you know, please intervene on this very, very important issue. Interestingly enough, it seemed to be under the radar quite a bit without people realizing what the true impact is of now taking away and segregating the emergency services response. So what I've heard is this is about patient care. This isn't about patient care. Alberta Health Services, their professionals do fabulous work. It's not about patient care. This is about responding to an emergency. Now, how best to do that? Is one phone call what you want, or is it okay to make 2 phone calls, or 1 phone call where you're now diverting that phone call to a different center? It's simply not necessary. So yes, I hope that there can be some groundwork established, and I'm cheering on our mayor to retain what Lethbridge and Red Deer and Fort McMurray were able to do. I'm hoping he might be able to achieve the same thing for the citizens of Calgary.
Well, we'll have to see if this does come to fruition, any kind of change. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Karen.
Thank you very much.
That is Karen Stoshanoff with the IBEW.